Okay, y'all, we finally know what has been decided when it comes to Section 8 and how it's going to affect both Section 8 landlords, investors, and Section 8 tenants. Because the Trump administration, as well as Congress, has finally made a decision on what they're going to do with this program. This is huge news because I've been trying to track everything that is going on ever since the Trump administration came into power and Elon Musk started heading up Doge and making cuts across federal funds. And I am a Section 8 landlord myself. I'm very, very affected by what goes on with this program. And I also teach other investors how to do Section 8 successfully and make guaranteed rental income every single month without having to deal with tenant headaches and all the drama that people often experience and associate with Section 8 rentals. I go over every step that you need from A to Z to be a successful Section 8 landlord. So if that's something that you are interested in, you can check out my free Section 8 mini course in the description box below, where I'm breaking down why Section 8 is such a great, powerful program, how to get your first or next rental property without using all of your own cash or credit, and how to scale your own rental portfolio for wealth. So if you've been following along with everything that's been going on in our government, you know that there was actually a potential government shutdown that was going to happen. And Congress passed a bill avoiding that shutdown. It was a Republican-backed bill, and even though a lot of Democrats did not agree with everything that was within the bill, they wanted to avoid having the government shut down and all the things that are associated with that, furloughs, job losses, funds being cut here and there. So this has gone forward. Now, surprisingly, for a lot of people, Section 8 actually got more funding. Now, the government shutdown is not what was worrying a lot of landlords like myself, because in the past, when we have had government shutdowns in the United States, Section 8 has still moved forward for the most part. Tenants were still getting their vouchers, and landlords were actually still getting paid. Last government shutdown was in 2018, and payments were still happening. The Section 8 program was still funded. So the biggest thing that most landlords were worried about was actually having funds cut completely, because there have been a lot of funding freezes in different government agencies and different programs since Trump came into power, and since Elon Musk and his Department of Government Efficiency have been making cuts across the board in our government. So of course, landlords like myself were worried whether or not this would even be a program that would continue and be worth it for us to rent to Section 8 tenants, because we didn't know if we were still going to get paid, which is the whole point of being a landlord. To provide housing to others, and when you're renting to Section 8, you're providing affordable housing and to make money. Like, let's not BS it, right? We're in this because we're looking for a way to make cash flow, passive income, build wealth, grow our assets through appreciation, all the things. I need you to not disrespect me like this, okay? Thank you. Thank you. So let's go over the actual changes. Number one, Section 8 got a huge funding increase. The program is now being funded at $32 billion, which is up from last year at $28 billion. So the program has gotten an increase significantly in how much money is going towards it. And this was a huge surprise even to me, because the big thought was that they were going to slash funding and cut a lot of the resources for this program, but they've actually added $3.8 billion more to the program. And I know for a lot of the haters that commented on some of my previous videos, this probably drives them insane. You can see that here. But the reason being is because even Republicans realize there is a major housing crisis in this country, a housing shortage of affordable housing. Like over 50% of people technically cannot afford their housing costs. And what that means is they're spending more than, I think, 35%, which is the recommendation, on their housing. So you may not be on the Section 8 program, but your housing costs are skyrocketing, and they recognize that this is the case. And if they were to cut this program, a lot of people would be affected. There would be an even bigger housing crisis, so they wanted to make sure that this was being covered. And experts are saying that because of this additional funding, all eligible participants, so all eligible voucher holders, should be able to get assistance. And this is huge because the average wait list for getting a Section 8 housing voucher is anywhere from 2 to 10 years, depending on what state someone is. So someone who has applied to Section 8 and actually been approved, they still have to wait anywhere from 2 to 10 years in order to get a voucher, to get housing. So the experts are saying because of this additional funding, everyone who is eligible should be able to get housing sooner rather than later. Now, this is a big if, because that is a huge wait list. So we'll have to wait and see if they can actually make that happen. In addition to Section 8, other HUD programs also got a boost in funding. This included the Project-Based Rental Assistance Program, which got a huge increase, and which is really surprising to me and a lot of people, because one of the biggest things that Project 2025, which a lot of Trump's administration is running off of, talked about moving away from public housing assistance. So again, this goes back to them realizing and recognizing that if they were to cut a lot of these programs, there would be a lot of people just unhoused. They also gave additional funding to the Section 202 program for seniors and the Section 811 program for disabled individuals. And this is showing that even with all the speculation and all the changes and cuts they are making within the country, housing does remain a federal priority, at least right now. So the biggest question now is what potential policy changes might be coming. There has been major talk about having work requirements and time limits to the Section 8 program, which I think is a great idea. A lot of people don't realize that many cities already require Section 8 voucher holders to work, and in general, a lot of voucher holders work, right? The government is paying a portion of their rent based on their income. The challenge is that even if they are working, they are still not making enough money to be able to afford the rent in many of these cities because rent too damn high. Like, it's just very expensive right now. But of course, just like anything else, there are people who do take advantage of the system and they don't work at all, whether or not they can or can't or even want to. And so a lot of the requirements that they're considering would be for people like that who are taking advantage of the system, not trying to work at all, and also just trying to live off of Section 8 in the government for basically eternity and the rest of their lives. So time limits and some sort of work requirements based on individual situations, I don't think is a totally bad thing. But it remains to be seen how this will be done, how it would be put together, because I do think it's something that they really have to take their time with, because again, there is a huge housing shortage, so the need for these programs is there, which they even recognize. And the HUD Secretary, Scott Turner, is considering these types of measures, but there hasn't been anything official announced yet. So with all this funding coming in, which is awesome, the biggest problem right now is that Section 8 still needs more landlords. You can have all the money in the world in these programs, but if there are not enough houses and enough landlords participating in the program, there's nowhere for Section 8 voucher holders and tenants to actually go and live. And the biggest issue is that these programs have not been doing enough historically to attract landlords, and landlords are pretty much frightened from participating because they've heard the horror stories, they've had horror experiences, and Section 8 needs to do a better job of educating landlords on the program, incentivizing them to join, and making it worth their while. I will say, in talking to some landlords who have had bad experiences with Section 8 or who are afraid, a lot of times it can be on the landlord in that they are not doing any sort of additional screening and they're relying on Section 8 to vet the tenant. They're not doing any of their own vetting, any of their own background research into a tenant, and that is a recipe for failure, because traditional market rate tenants can tear up your house and destroy it, and the same can happen with Section 8 tenants. It's up to you as a landlord to protect your asset and actually successfully screen your tenants, which is something that I go over in my free Section 8 mini course, which again you can get in the description box below. And one of the things the bill that was recently passed does mention specifically is using some of the funds to incentivize and get more landlords to participate in the program. So they do see that there is a need to get more landlords in so that there's more housing available to voucher holders. One of the reasons why the lists are so long is because there's not enough housing to go around. So that needs to change. With that being said, there are quite a few things that these housing authorities across the country can do to fix the situation and offer landlords better protections, right? The screening and the vetting shouldn't all be on landlords. We are doing a service in providing affordable housing, so the public housing authorities should take a larger role in doing background checks and vetting tenants and not letting tenants who have had prior evictions in the Section 8 program still get vouchers and just move on to the next house. Shouldn't allow tenants who have lots of complaints still get vouchers and move on to the next unsuspecting landlord. These are the reasons why some landlords have reservations. And if more landlords knew that these public housing authorities were going to compensate them if a tenant were to damage their property, they would absolutely get more participation as well. And that should include things like more frequent inspections done by Section 8. Now, I recommend to my students, and I myself as a landlord, I inspect my properties pretty regularly because I want my tenants to know that I'm coming. I do it respectfully. I give them notice, but I want to make sure that my asset that we have paid for is being taken care of the right way. And this is what I do with my upfront screening as well. I make sure the quality of the tenants that I'm bringing into my properties is the best that I can get. So I think now is one of the best times to get into Section 8 rentals. There are billions of dollars that have been allocated to fund these programs, and that money is sitting there waiting for landlords and new real estate investors just like you. If you are a Section 8 landlord, now is the time to lock in long-term tenants and market rate rent payments. You want to make sure you are not undercharging and that you are getting the amount of rent you need to not only cover your expenses, your mortgage, taxes, insurance, but also cash flow positively. And of course, you want to make sure you're keeping up to date with what is going on with Section 8. Get on your local public housing authorities' email lists, newsletters. Affordablehousing.com is a great resource as well. And so you want to stay in the know. So if getting your first or next rental and getting guaranteed rental income from the government the successful way every single month is something you're interested in, go ahead and check out my free Section 8 investing mini course in the description box below. And go ahead and check out this next video here, because when you pair the two together, you're going to be even more unstoppable in your real estate investing and passive income journey. Okay.